Okay, good evening. Thank you everybody for joining us. Board President to advise members of the audience that they may address the board regarding agenda items after the superintendent's report. Only those members whose names and addresses are listed on the sign-in sheet available prior to the start of the meeting will be recognized during new business. The chairperson will limit discussions of any item by the public to 3 minutes in order for the board to expeditiously conduct its business. Mr. Dolan.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and it's good to see everybody here tonight. I'm going to ask for your patience because I do have a statement that I want to read. You know, it's been a long 2 years, and I'll make sure that I try to stay in the middle of the road here. You know, Bruce Blakeman, if you're a big fan of this Nassau County Executive, and Governor Hochul, if you're a fan of the governor, are both elected officials who, quite frankly, you know, at times live in a bubble. We're a school district. We're charged with educating kids. And it's much different, you know, than working in an office building. And we have been taken down a road by both, you know, groups that has made it difficult. But I want to commend, and in the last meeting, you know, we were very happy. I was very proud to work here because people really did listen to each other. And that was important. And we have some tough decisions ahead, but like I said, I'm going to ask your indulgence for the next couple of minutes. Yesterday, Governor Hochul announced that the school mask mandate will be extended till February 28th. In her statement, she also alluded to staff and students testing before the return to school to gauge when, if any COVID spread occurred during the February break. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Education, our administrative team, our security consultant, and our security department for having the foresight to hand out over 12,000 test kits last Sunday to community members who needed them. As we announced before the governor did, in preparation for the eventuality of going mask optional when the return to normal life, we wanted a chance to do a round of testing to gauge what, if any, the COVID effect was from the holiday. For the last 2 weeks, our quarantine and positive case numbers have been less than 1% of our school community. The world outside our school walls is moving rapidly back to normalcy. Social, athletic, and academic activities are taking place with many participants not masked. As we have stated before, no one, and I stress no one, has come forward to say they love masks and hope they last forever. What has bitterly divided our community is people's opinions on the validity of mask wearing and how much longer they should be worn. The 7-day positivity rate is not a scientific study, but it is a psychological barometer. As that number gets lower, more and more people feel comfortable moving to mask optional. Last summer, when that number was below 3%, we successfully ran 3 summer school programs and athletic practices and academic events and saw no spread when masks were optional. Over the past 3 weeks, the greatest number of discussions I've had about masks have ended in the following way, and I do paraphrase. Mr. Dolan, it's been a long 2 years, and we are ready to try to go mask optional. We just don't know how to take those first steps. Through all the angry rhetoric from both sides, what I have heard loud and clear from this community is no one enjoys wearing masks or wants to wear them forever. What we must do is listen carefully and listen empathetically to each other so we can take the steps back together. We were all extremely proud at that last meeting where people came with different opinions and listened respectfully to each other. Ladies and gentlemen, we have seen our neighbors in New Jersey and Connecticut give target dates to begin to allow mask optional in schools. New York is a very large state, and the regions have very different numbers and needs, but we are a state. Please keep that in mind as we try to stick together. It is also very important that we begin to plan now to become mask optional because going mask optional may have some serious ramifications for individuals in our community. We must give people time to plan accordingly and make choices. We've been wearing these masks for almost 2 years. You can't just rip them off in 2 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that it is inevitable that we will be mask optional in the very near future. And this is how we're going to prepare. We're going to host one more drive-through test pickup next week, date to be determined based on schedules, but we want to do it before Saturday because we know people are going on vacation. Please note, the governor said something about testing, but there was no clear direction. We believe that you should test if you're symptomatic. We believe you've been exposed. In the end, we must trust each other to do the right thing. If you're sick, stay home. If you're sick, test. If you think you've been exposed, you will test. And if you are positive, please report those tests to the Department of Health. And again, in the end, we must trust each other. We will monitor attendance the first week we come back from vacation. We fully expect to be mask optional either March 7th or March 14th, depending what we see. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let us remind you that no one has enjoyed wearing masks and no one wants to continue wearing masks into perpetuity. We all want our children in school full-time in a safe and healthy fashion. There is a movement across the country to return to normalcy. It is time for us to take these steps together. March 15th, ironically, is the 2-year anniversary of our school shutdown. That is a place no one ever wants to return to. It is now time to focus on the commonalities we have and the strength that we have gained over the many challenges that COVID has presented to us. The way to honor the memories of those who were sick or those that we have lost is to begin to pull ourselves back together, working together to get back to normal. The next couple of weeks, and I stress, and we're on vacation for one of them, the next couple of weeks will allow us to check and double check before we take these first steps together. The next couple of weeks will also allow us to prepare for any ramifications moving forward, going mask optional. I'm going to stress, barring any unforeseen legal maneuvers or decisions, the East Islip School District is stating we plan to be mask optional on March 7th or no later than March 14th. We will continue to work with other school districts, other school boards, and all the stakeholders in an effort to have a unified and united movement back to normal. Ladies and gentlemen, never in my wildest dreams did I envision sitting here having to say something like that. It has been a long, long road. I've never been a politician. I don't run for elected office. I don't think I'd want to get that kind of report card where people, every 2 or every 4 years tell me whether I've done a good job. I'm sure that they feel they're doing what's right. But ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, the mood of the country, even the moods of our medical experts who offer opinions, and I stress that, opinions. We are moving in a direction, and we must do everything we can to stay together. Now, our next board meeting is on March 10th. If for any reason there is some sort of change in what looks like, and the governor said it again today, she believes we're going to be mask optional. But we're making a statement tonight that regardless of what she says or what she does or what Mr. Blakeman says or what Mr. Blakeman does, we're comfortable to proceed moving mask optional. If mask optional comes before March 7th, we will move to mask optional on that day. It's time to get back to normal. It's time to rekindle the friendships. It's time to get back together again as a community and focus on the business that we were intended to do. Not to be pawns in political, not to be, a volleyball in a political game, getting knocked back and forth in net. We're here to help educate our children and do the very best job we can. So, as of March 7th or March 14th, we are poised and ready to go mask optional. Thank you very much, Mr. Zachary. It's back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Okay, any public comments on agenda items? Agenda items only. Okay, moving on. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, position abolitions, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the certified personnel attachments. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, please.
And again, we hope to have a big celebration in June for all of our retirees, but I want to ask Diane Chiafalo, Jesse Ferraro, Christine Cirillo, and Lori Fitzmaurice to please stand up. It's fitting that you folks are there together. Ladies and gentlemen, these were 4 of the best students I ever had when I was a teacher here in East Islip. It's always bittersweet because you're 4 out of 11 teachers who are retiring, and it's almost 300 years of experience. And it's kind of ironic because I was, over at the high school this afternoon talking to a young man who's completing his student teaching and beginning to look for a job. And he said to me, he goes, Mr. Dolan, if you had to do all over again, would you? And again, the bittersweet part is I've been here long enough now to get to know the 4 of you. I looked him right in the eye and without hesitation, I said, I wish I could start all over again, not only do it again. You ladies have spent the last, I won't tell them how many, because you guys are going to love retirement, by the way. But you guys have spent the last 30 plus years taking care of other people's children, trying to be a good example, trying to guide them, give them confidence, get them to make good choices. And let me tell you, working with children is so exhausting because oftentimes they haven't realized where they want to go or what they want to do. And, it's like the example of the test, You want them to do well on the test, but they might want to go outside and play and not study. You want them to get better, but they might not want to read the book because they'd rather watch TV or play a video game. And you kind of live and die with that. And you ladies have given us, every ounce of what you have. And all we ask for you is that you have a happy and healthy retirement. And we just hope your retirement treats you the way you treated the kids here. Ladies, we love you. Let's give them a nice round of applause. And just so you know, we put you on the sub list for next year because we desperately need subs.
Yes, congratulations to the 11 teachers who are retiring. Every year, more and more who I had here are moving on and retiring. I'm surprised there's any left, but we're getting there. But congratulations to all 11. Be resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the resignations, terminations, leaves of absence, position abolitions, employment appointments, tenure appointments, and salary changes in accordance with applicable provisions of education law and civil service law as cited in the non-certified personnel attachments. Take a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye. Okay, on the agenda tonight is the retirement of Brew. Erin has been the payroll supervisor in the district for the past 20 years. This year culminates 29 years with the district. Again, 20 of which has been spent as the payroll supervisor, and I've had the pleasure of working with her for the past 7 years. So I just want to acknowledge her, the approval of her retirement tonight. I know our loss is her family's gain, her 3 children and 3 grandchildren are going to benefit from, again, our loss. Just an example of Erin's commitment to the district over the years. She'd often come in on vacation to make sure that payroll would be done on a scheduled every 2-week basis, as well as to be able to hand out checks to those that didn't have direct deposit. So that's just a snippet of her commitment to the district, and I've enjoyed working with her. Coming to the district as I did 7 years ago, we value having someone with her experience in the district, but not only her experience, but her willingness to work with me as we change things over the years. So for that, I'm eternally grateful, and as I said, she'll be missed, so please join me in congratulating her on her retirement.
Congratulations, Erin. Okay, consent agenda. Anybody want anything pulled from consent agenda? I'm going to ask that 9.12 be pulled. So we're going to vote on 9.1 through 9.11 and 9.13 through 9.15. Be resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, recommends that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda items 9.1 through 9.11, 9.13 through 9.15, in accordance with the action presented for each item. Can we get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent.
If you'd like to.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we just approved an adjustment to the calendars. March 25th is going to be a superintendent's conference day. We only had one at the beginning of the school year. So it's going to be a professional development day. The teachers will be here, but the students won't. And the Friday before Memorial Day will be an in-person learning day due to the last snow day.
9.12, be resolved that upon the recommendations of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education approves a new scholarship, and the Charles Hansner Memorial Scholarship. A $1,000 scholarship will be offered to a graduating senior who's planning to pursue a profession in the trades, an electrician, plumber, carpenter, automotive, contracting, cosmetology, etc. The application for awarding the scholarship is attached. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
And a very special thank you to the Hansner family. It's a great way to remember somebody by setting up a scholarship, and it's very much appreciated, so thank you very much for your generosity. That's your father-in-law.
Yes, Charles Pansner is my father-in-law. You might know Lisa Rulin, my wife. That's her dad. He passed away in December. He was a lifetime resident of East Islip, a 1950 graduate of East Islip, an electrician for over 60 years. So I wanted to do something for the trades in the school, and I thought this would be a good start to have part of the awards night giving a scholarship to somebody that's pursuing the trades. And I ask all parents, teachers out there to talk to the kids. I don't need a GPA, and there's no big essay. You know, it's open to everybody, so they should try to do it. Now, I am a trial attorney by trade, so there will be an interview and some cross-examination of the children. But I'm looking forward to this and meeting the kids that are really interested in the trades.
Do they have to do work at your house?
Again, Steve, thank you and your family for your generosity in setting this up.
Thank you.
Old business. Do you have any old business? No old business. New business.
I have new business. Can you tell us how parents find out about new course offerings, how they're made aware of new course offerings, and how the children find out about it?
I believe back in the November, December timeframe, there was a curriculum fair that was recorded and posted online for parents to view. It was up there for several weeks. In addition to that, they can have access to the curriculum guide, which is also on the district website under the high school.
I guess also under new business, I got to say, my two 9-year-olds are in 4th grade, and they came home this week. They made nightlights in their STEAM class, and it was great. They came home, they were talking about the chips in there and how they program the chips and changes colors, and I thought it was just really neat how 9-year-olds were working on these things. So great job with the STEAM program, the STEAM teacher. Doing a great job, and the kids loved it, so thank you guys. Any other new business?
I had some new business, so I just wanted to talk about the Buddies program. For those of you who don't know, the Buddies program is available to special education students K through 8 throughout the district. They had their first session last night. I ended up taking my son to go. He thoroughly enjoyed it. He actually said to me, "Dad, I had so much fun at the end," so I just wanted to thank Ms. Schwartz, as well as the students from the Leaders Club and from the high school participated, and all the students that came out to just have some fun, so I wanted to mention that as well.
Great. Any other new business? Stephanie?
Frank Dima.
Good evening. My name is Frank Dima. Since the dawn of modern medicine, face masks have been worn to mitigate the spread of airborne pathogens. This is most clearly seen in an operating room where masks are worn not to protect the surgical team, but to protect the patient from potential harm from a team member's exhaled breath, being it from a nose or a mouth. And that was the original reasoning for mask-wearing mandates enacted during the COVID-19 pandemic. Masks were never intended to protect you, the wearer. They were intended to protect others from you, in case you were unknowingly carrying the virus. And since the virus is carried on droplets, then even double-layer cloth masks and low-cost medical masks proved to be a very effective defense against community spread, enabling our businesses and schools to remain open for the past 18 or so months. But such masks are only effective if everybody wears one. Now, somehow over time, there was a paradigm shift, and we started to see public messaging on how masks should be worn to protect our individual selves. Mask wearing went from community protection to individual protection, and that shift in messaging caused a lot of confusion, particularly amongst the folks viewing any mandate simply as an affront to their freedom. Now, it can be debated as to whether or not COVID-19 and its variants are dangerous enough to the vast majority of people to warrant broad government-imposed or intrusive mandates. And I do agree with you, Mr. Karpluk, that the cost of such mandates to students and schools are now outweighing the benefits, especially since we now have safe, effective vaccines widely available. So I agree it's time to make masks optional. But let's be clear-eyed about it. We are removing a very effective barrier to community spread of a dangerous, deadly pathogen that is on track to kill over 1 million of our fellow Americans. And that scares the hell out of a lot of parents and students in our community. And this school board must be sensitive to those well-founded fears. I ask for a simple compromise. If the board chooses the path of a mask optional policy, then you should also offer, free of charge, the more effective N95 masks to those students and staff who choose to continue wearing a mask. And we should educate the vaccine hesitant as to the benefits and safety of modern vaccine technology. Once mask wearing becomes an option, any real effectiveness of surgical or cloth masks will simply be a farce, because those types of masks were never intended for an individual's protection from airborne pathogens, whereas the N95 masks do offer a level of protection when worn properly. In closing, this school board and this school district has an obligation to provide a level of comfort and security to all students and staff while on school grounds. I believe the compromise I am proposing is a relatively low-cost way to ensure a level of fairness and safety to all those who value such things in an increasingly tenuous democracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I say something? Mr. Dima? I have to admit, when they said they were going to send tests for us to give away, we never thought they were coming. And then the first time we got called, they gave us 600, and I said, well, we have over 4,000 students and employees. They said, don't worry, more are coming, and we chuckled and said, sure. And now we've had enough to really, I think, give to a wide swath of the community. And we're under the impression that the masks are on the way and will be available to those who need them the same way the tests have been. So they came through with the first promise, so I think that's a very reasonable request. So we'll work on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa Miller.
Good evening. I just want to start by, I heard this, I was at a fundraiser for football last week, so I heard it on YouTube, but I just want to commend the board when the Supreme Court ruled about the mask mandate and being unconstitutional. I think this board was accused last week of acting hastily and irrationally, and you sought legal counsel. That was conveyed to us. And I think you did exactly what I personally would have expected you to do. Okay, there could be no keener revelation of a society's soul, Nelson Mandela famously said, than the way in which it treats its children. By that standard, our society now has the soul of an abusive parent. The pandemic has turned American adults, or at least the ones who make the rules, into selfish neurotics, who have been punishing innocent children for over 2 years now and still can't restrain themselves. When the pandemic began, the lack of knowledge about COVID-19 justified this behavior. That excuse has vanished. It became clear long ago that this virus is less dangerous to children than the flu, and that keeping schools open, which commend you did too, minimal risk of spreading infections. Yet, despite this evidence, and despite the widespread availability of vaccines to the teachers and other adults who want to get them, many schools have yet to reopen, take New York City, and others are still making students as miserable as possible. Schools have canceled many sports and other extracurricular activities throughout the 2 years, isolated students in plexiglass cells and forced them to wear masks in classrooms and on playgrounds. Social distancing and masks hinder learning while harming children emotionally, socially, and physically, and all for no other purpose than providing false comfort to adults who ought to know better. You can't find a study online in this country, okay, but there's been studies done in Germany and Sweden, and these mask mandates are particularly cruel to young children. Adults are supposed to ease their fears, to reassure them that monsters aren't hiding under their bed. Instead, we're frightening them into believing they're stalked by invisible menaces lurking in the air. 2 years of mask wearing will scar many of them psychologically and maybe physically too, according to a team of Italian professors of plastic surgery, who warned that the prolonged pressure from the elastic straps could leave young children with permanently protruding ears. By hiding teachers' lips and muffling their speech, mask wearing makes it harder for young people to develop linguistic skills and prevents children with hearing impairments from lip reading. Unable to rely on facial cues, teachers and students of all ages are more likely to misinterpret one another, a particularly acute problem for children on the autism spectrum. How are children supposed to develop social skills when they can't even see one another's faces, sit together, or play together? Researchers from the University of Witten-Herdecke in Germany have cataloged other problems. They established an online registry for parents to report on the side effects of mask wearing. Among the nearly 18,000 parents who chose to respond, it wasn't a random sample, more than half reported that the masks were giving their children headaches and making it difficult for them to concentrate. More than 1/3 cited other side effects: increased reluctance to go to school, unhappiness, malaise, impaired learning, drowsiness, and fatigue. After considering those reports, as well as testimony from other researchers, a court in Weimar, Germany, recently ruled in favor of a parent arguing that her children's basic rights were being violated by the mandates for masks and social distancing at her children's 2 schools. The court ordered the schools to end the mandates, declaring that they damaged the mental and physical and spiritual well-being of students while failing to offer any discernible benefit for the children themselves or the third parties. Masks can be breeding grounds for infections of bacteria, mold, and fungi, which is why the Centers for Disease Control recommends that a cloth mask should be washed with soap and water whenever it gets dirty, or at least daily. The CDC also advises washing your hands anytime you take off the mask, and then washing your hands again after you put it back on. Pretending that children, or even adults at this point, are doing that is just crazy. They're not dutifully doing this. So, I know I'm probably over time. Now that the pandemic has eased, so many people have developed immunity either by vaccination or infection. The risk to teachers in America and most other places is even lower. So, for the teachers who clamor to reach in front of the line for the vaccines, the risk of teaching in a room of unmasked students is essentially nil. It is clear from the Swedish economics economists study that the risk to the students' parents is also essentially nil. There is no excuse for closing any school, particularly now that we know the effect of learning, and the researchers have found that children studying remotely make little or no academic progress. So, adult fear-mongering has probably fooled most
Ms. Miller,
children.
I have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay, I certainly will.
Thank you.
So far, adult fear-mongering has probably fooled most children into believing that school closure, social distancing, and masks are necessary precautions. But eventually, when the hysteria abates and the facts emerge, they will realize that their year of studying miserably, 2 years studying miserably, served no more rational purpose than our ancestors' child sacrificed to the gods. As Oscar Wilde said, children begin by loving their parents. As they grow older, they judge them. Sometimes they forgive them. This generation will have much to forgive. Thank you.
James Sakaro.
So, in November, a political organization in New Hampshire placed bounties on teachers. The governor of Virginia has undertaken a similar path by setting up a hotline for reporting teachers for using divisive language. This is an intentionally vague and poorly defined parameter of conduct, allowing teachers to be reported for virtually anything they say. Florida, Texas, and now Indiana have they're also increasing both the vagueness and the severity of their classroom censorship initiatives, going so far as to punish teachers for speaking about things like race, gender, and sexuality, among a host of other potential topics. My family, like every family here, values our children's education. We wouldn't be here at these meetings if we didn't. My wife and I decided to stay on Long Island because of the high quality public schools. We chose to move to East Islip specifically because of the school district. The bedrock of any school system are its educators. Our educators have been there for their community. Whether schools were in person or remote, masks or no masks, vaccines, no vaccines, etc., the teachers will always be here and have never wavered in fulfilling their duties. 2 years ago, when the world felt anything but normal, it was our teachers who were able to provide one of the few shreds of normalcy for our kids. Our teachers have been there for us, and now they need us to be there for them. So my question is, when this sort of politicized discourse reaches our doorstep, what are we prepared to do to advocate for our teachers against this sort of abuse?
We hope it doesn't get there. We've said over and over what a great job our teachers have done these last 2 years. They've worked harder than they ever have. I'm sure before who are retiring can tell you these last 2 years have probably been the toughest 2 years that they've had, that they've been here. So we have a great relationship with our teachers and the union, so we don't anticipate we're going to get there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen Remedy.
Good evening. I am the mother of 2 boys, a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. I am also an educator of 17 years, teaching children in all grades K through 8 as a special education teacher. I decided to speak tonight because I'm tired. Tired of our senseless mandates, tired of the fear-mongering, and tired of our choices as parents being taken away. I am tired of making sure my son has a mask for school and spending money on something that lacks true efficacy and true scientific backing. I am tired of him asking me when this is going to end. I know there are people who feel safer with masks, and that is fine. There are also those who don't believe in masking at all, whatsoever. Then, there are those like myself who believe that there should be a choice. That parents should have the right to protect their families as they see fit. To decide when to mask or whether to mask. To decide when to vaccinate, to decide when to vaccinate or whether to vaccinate. I will share with you what I do know. I know that I have to look at 20 students every day who are tired just like me. These are children who want to see the smiles of their friends and teachers and to know that they are safe and acknowledged. I know that the number of referrals for students to receive educational services are growing at an alarming rate, and many students in K through 5 are lacking essential foundational skills that require them to become fluent readers, my son included. I know that students are not reading if their students are not reading on grade level by the end of grade 3, most likely they will never catch up. The learning loss accrued is staggering. I know that teachers and staff members, some not all, are tired of being forced to be the mass police and tired of feeling that they are going to be punished or disciplined if they are not constantly correcting students. Educators and staff members need to be focused on addressing the learning loss and not who needs a clean mask or isn't wearing one properly. I know that children are told, put your mask up, more than they are asked, how are you feeling today? How are things going? What can I do to help you? This begs the question, if students have constantly been asked to put their mask up and cases aren't skyrocketing, is a mask mandate actually needed in our schools anymore? If the children have not been wearing them appropriately most of the time, and there is not an alarming spread within our schools, when can this end? I hear many parents and community members are saying, the children are fine, and the anti-mandate adults are just whining and don't understand science or safety. That is simply not true. Has anyone taken the time to ask the children how they were doing or how they feel about the current situation? And just a side note, this morning I had a student put his hands over his, and I thought he had a bloody nose and he was deathly afraid because his mask broke. And I said, just smile at me. And he looked at me and he said, that's it? I said, that's it. Smile at me. I'm sure the answers would run the gamut if we asked them. But has anyone actually tried to talk to those who are the most affected here, our children? Since the opinions, feelings, fears, and perspectives are so varied, I implore you to stand with choice, and thank you for that. Stand with amending our reopening plan and encourage parental choice within our schools. I thank you for your time and dedication to our schools. I also thank all the parents and guardians for standing up for whatever you believe in, for the fact that we all have differing opinions should pave the way for all parents to have choice in the decision-making for all of their children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Haley Schmidt, and this is my second board meeting. We talked about the maps last time. I left a message to the governor this morning about the maps. We all know they don't work. The governor said this morning that we don't have to wear a mask whenever it's up for the school and the jail. It feels like I'm the governor. Incredible. I'm here now to stand up for my rights. I will not wear a mask again.
Thank you.
Hi. I want to talk to you tonight about the dereliction of duty that you've been demonstrating. The fact that some of you have sat here without masks, which is a current mandate for schools, shows your complete disrespect. If you don't follow this rule, what other rules aren't you following? You are trusted with the stewardship of our schools, and yet you demonstrate this actually doesn't mean anything to you. For the record, my high school senior has been wearing a mask this whole time, and she is fine. She handles it with maturity and grace, unlike many in our community. One of the letters written by a 10th grader last week stated that she did not know of any adults who have to wear masks all day. There are many adults who have to wear masks all day, including first responders, including our teaching staff in theory, and including me as a healthcare worker. And by the way, all day long isn't from 7:10 a.m. to 1:47. I wear a mask all day during the week, and many of my days are 13-hour shifts. I manage just fine. I'm a mental health professional, and I work with many adolescents and adults who have had increasing difficulty during this pandemic. Do you know what topic never comes up as an issue in my office? Masks. None of them are complaining about wearing them. It is not adding to their depression or anxiety to have to wear masks while they are in school. The only person I talk to about masks is an immunocompromised teacher who is pregnant, who is terrified to go to work every day because administration in her school district is not enforcing the masks any better than we are. A mask is not what their issues are about, but the kids and teachers and staff who have had COVID may not be fine in the end. To me, it is as simple as that. Minimizing the risks of any of us getting an illness that could be serious is a reasonable concept. I was going to start tonight with my concerns about the mask mandate being enforced at each of the buildings, as I have expressed to you in emails all along. But the number of pictures that the district posts on social media where everyone is clustered together and no one is wearing masks, not to mention this room, shows publicly how little you care about rules or mandates.
There's no mandate.
We already knew that once the mandate is lifted, East Islip will become mask optional. East Islip has been mask optional at the high school level for most of the pandemic. When your staff won't enforce it and half of them aren't wearing them, it is mask optional. Chin straps are not the rule, masks are. We are the adults. We are supposed to lead by example to help our kids feel okay about things that we as a community and as a country should be doing to help our fellow countrymen and women. Instead, this fight has become about personal freedom instead of the greater good, about selfishness over sacrifice. At last week's meeting, one of you had said to all you asked is to be respectful. I would like to know why you have not had the respect to require mask wearing to be enforced at meetings, not even by yourselves. You all have been derelict in your duty to set an example, to follow the rules, to show your EI pride in taking care of your community. I find it an affront that several board members have repeatedly appeared at various places without masks. Oh, that was way better than I thought it was going to do. John, I just have a follow-up question to something you said in your statement. Did you say that no matter what the governor says about the mandate, that we will be mask optional on March 7th or 14th? That's how I heard it.
Yes.
I asked him, and I replied by you spoke.
The answer is yes.
Guys, do me a favor, we've been polite, we've been respectful. What I said was, we will be mask optional either on the 7th or the 14th. If there are any other legal challenges or ramifications, we'll have a chance to meet with our attorneys because we have a meeting on March 10th. But yes, our intention is to be mask optional.
Whether or not the governor lifts the mandate. I just want you to be super clear about it. That's all I'm asking. I'm not arguing with you about your point. I just want you to be really clear.
We fully anticipate changes coming.
Me
so,
too.
And listen, I tried to, look, like I said, I respect all the politicians, but you're not going to drag me into that statement. The statement is we plan to be mask optional either on the 7th or the 14th, and we will do it legally and correctly. That's my statement. I'm not going to get dragged in with the politicians because, like I said, they have a job to do, and their number one job is to get reelected, so they play to the crowd.
Yep.
What we want to, come on guys, please. I don't want any comments. I want to, we're going to listen to everybody. Spent the last 2 years listening to everybody, and we will continue to listen. But I'm going to be clear, I'm not dragging the governor in, I'm not throwing down with the governor, I'm not throwing down with Mr. Blakeman. I'm simply saying the intention is to be mask optional by the 7th, the latest the 14th, and we're going to do it correctly, and we're going to do it in a way that makes everyone as comfortable as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, Carol, we can't.
This is what this is about.
It is, of course it's what it's about.
Hello, Board of Ed meeting members. My name is Reed Thornton. I'm in 6th grade, and I'm going to be talking about why we should make mask optional. Today I went around to my fellow friends in the 6th grade, and 95% of them said that they would like to make masks optional. Fully respecting people that want to wear the mask when we make mask optional. We should also be respected if we don't want to wear a mask. Another thing is when I go to school, I'm afraid to I forget my mask and I'm afraid to go to school because of that. Because teachers, they push on you and they get mad at you, and sometimes you get written up because you're not wearing a mask. My mom is a speech therapist, and she also says that it's hard to teach kids, and it's hard for other teachers to teach kids that have difficulty speaking because they can't see their lips when they're talking. I also want to say my friends that they get headaches because when they wear the mask. I also tried to wear a mask properly, and I could not breathe, I couldn't think, and I could not focus. The mask is a distraction when I'm trying to work in class. And also, I know some kids that never went to school without wearing a mask. That is crazy. Thank you for your time.
Kind of perfect timing because what I'm about to do is for the beautiful little girl and this beautiful boy. Okay, so first of all, you had an opportunity to do an amicus brief, a friendly letter. That's all an amicus brief is, a friendly letter to Judge Miller to say, this school district agrees, we want to go mask optional. You didn't do it. So, please be advised, this Board of Education has been notified on public record by the community at large on numerous occasions that the mandates imposed under 10 NYCRR 2.60 were illegal. You were aware of that. Through both open public meetings and email communications, you have been called upon to listen to the taxpayers of this district and remedy that improper regulation. To date, you have not listened to this community. Instead, you have intentionally engaged in what is known as deliberate indifference to the federal and constitutional statutory rights of others, resulting in a hostile environment under civil liability statutes, which applies to each and every board member. You are violating the United States Constitution, the New York State Constitution, and multiple state laws. Your teachers and staff are practicing medicine. You just admitted yourself. You're handing out test kits and masks without a license, as defined by the New York State Education Law, Article 31, titled Medicine. Therefore, also violating New York Authors of Profession codes. In addition, we have advised you that the Board of Education members are not immune to personal liability under Civil Rights Section 1983 actions. Despite our pleading at recent BOE meetings to correct these violations, the Board of Education members and the superintendent, along with the advisement of the district contracted law firm, continued to implement widespread practices of school officials and employees, which, although not authorized by adopted policy, became common and well settled, you know those words, right, as to constitute a custom that fairly represents district policy, although it is not. Those customs included forced and coerced masking of students, isolation, segregation, forced and coerced testing, quarantining, verbal and nonverbal cues to students to adjust their mask wearing, as was just evidenced, deprivation of learning, a previously enjoyed right, until students comply. Governor Cuomo's state disaster emergency powers were rescinded in March and ended in June of 2021. Governor Hochul has never been endowed with any such powers. You are all wrong about the mandates, including that lady who spoke previously. Mandates and directives are not law. You are under no obligation to follow any directives or recommendations. You acted in concert with the state in making the community believe this was a law. The Governor, Department of Health, New York State Education Department, known as the University of the State of New York Corporation, which controls all of the schools and which you mentioned earlier, are not legislative bodies and do not pass law. Sanitary Code 10 NYCRR 2.60 was amended in a capricious and arbitrary manner. At no time did this school district provide the community with independent metrics or data on the efficacy of mask wearing, nor the harm that was going to be created by the mask wearing, especially of minors. As a matter of fact, in a FOIL to the Department of Health, those very questions were asked if the Department of Health had data, and the Department of Health response was, there are no records indicative to your response. So, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention on January 14th clarified for this gentleman here who doesn't know, cloth masks do not offer protection. The CDC stated that January 14th, check their website. In addition, the FDA and CDC publicly announced that they're discontinuing the use of PCR tests as a metric since the flu just miraculously disappeared. On January 24th, the New York State Supreme Court found masking to be unconstitutional. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the Board of Education continues to enforce authoritative and harmful practices as agents of the University of the State of New York Corporation. Your actions have resulted in inducing mental, physical, and emotional harm on the student bodies, families, and taxpayers. So let it be known that your failures to comply to satisfy professional duties as prescribed by law constitute a breach of oath and faithful performance. In order to begin a show of good faith, we will ask you to remedy these, because I do believe in the faith of this board, although you know the SAPA ruling occurred today. And when you said that we might have to consider in March what rules are going to be found, it's the SAPA ruling that occurred today through the back door of the Department of Health with Governor Hochul. Look it up in the New York State Register, December 15th issue. So, at this time, you are hereby served with a notice of intent upon your bonds. That is now on record with the district clerk.
Good evening. I didn't really expect to be after that. But I just want to start by saying that through this pandemic, I have tried my best to always respect both sides. I know when I've said too much or when my husband has gone too far. Everyone has their own story to tell, and I would never take that away from anyone. But we all know there are three sides to every story: his side, her side, and the truth. A mask optional, vaccine optional plan is the only option, and it would give both sides the opportunity to do what they feel comfortable with. This gives individuals the opportunity to make the decision that is best suits them and their unique families. And I say individuals because that is exactly what it does. It protects the individual, not the public. I know people who have both contracted and spread the virus, even though they are vaccinated, even though they wear a mask. As a matter of fact, I know an unvaccinated person who got infected from a vaccinated person. Why? Because of the more lenient rules for the vaccinated. It does not protect anyone but themselves. And this is not coming from the news or a medical journal. It is coming from real-life experience. It is a shame that I have been able to give my children the most normal life possible, except for when they are in school. A place where my kindergartner has spent 1/3 of her life taught to stay away from her peers and teachers and is learning to read and pronounce letters, sounds, and words from a teacher with her face covered. Where my 3rd grader had her 1st grade year ripped from under her, and the next 2 years with without most of the things that make school fun, and couldn't even share a paper Valentine with her friends because, you know, COVID. Where my 10th grader has, among many other things, had to at one point carry a desk shield from class to class, which if it wasn't cutting her hands, was cutting her ankles while walking the halls. And has worn a mask for 2 years that at times has heightened her anxiety. All because the person next to her might be afraid of COVID. Where every child has lost their security, where things change from one minute to the next, and where they lack consistency and stability. Where the second they walk out those doors, they can play, hug, and share with their friends if I, the parent, do so choose to allow it. But what if we are afraid? Afraid of the physical, mental, emotional, and educational damage all this might cause. Afraid of the unseen damage that the masks might be causing. What if we are afraid of a newly developed vaccine with a new technology never used? A vaccine that has had very little time to be studied. What if we are afraid of the possible side effects that it might cause, the long-term effects we haven't had time to figure out? But no one thinks about that. We are accused of being selfish, not looking out for the greater good of society, not doing what it takes to get us out of this, when no one really knows what will get us out of this. Just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, just a mask, just a vaccine, just a booster, and possibly another. The ever-changing rules, data, and scientific studying. How the vaccinated and unvaccinated are pitted against each other because one's choice is better than the other. How this has now become a pandemic of the unvaccinated and the vaccinated are still following mandates to protect us. Well, if that's so true, then let us be. Let us take the risks and be held accountable. I will gladly stay 6 feet from or more from anyone who I make feel uncomfortable. And let the other side take their own risks as well. We only have one chance at this thing called life, and it is too short to live in fear. And like my grandmother used to say, if worrying fixed anything, I'd worry all the time. So the only answer that will fit everyone's needs is freedom. the freedom to choose. Thank you.
Good evening. Just very clearly, for the record, there is no current executive order on masks. There was only a New York State Department of Health emergency declaration that's expiring on February 21st. Obviously, we know that was deemed unconstitutional. But unfortunately, just this evening, we got word that today, 4 New York State Department of Health regulations through SAPA procedural regulations have passed. One of them is codifying masking. The other is the governor's ability to detain public health threats, etc. So I just wanted to bring that up. We really do need to plan ahead of these orders and not after. So I would ask the board to go mask optional right after break. I don't think there's any reason to hold on to March because, you know, at this point, the masking is going to be codified and legal. So what are we going to do? Are we going to be masking our children forever, or are we going to take a stand? That's it.
Thank you.
Stand.
Tara Bartik?
Just ran into a truck. You want to skip to the next one?
Sure. Tara Bartik?
I'm too out of breath.
Oh, yes?
No, go next. You can go next.
Okay, Tara, that's fine. You can go, we can take somebody else and then you come
Joyce
up.
Lucky?
Good evening. I don't have anything prepared. I find it absolutely amazing, or I don't even know the words, for somebody to come up here and give a 3.5-minute speech about wearing masks when he's not even wearing his own mask. You can't. I have a question. If masks work, why don't they work? 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we're over 100 weeks into this thing. It's ridiculous. So far, whatever they've done has not worked. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. Okay? What this girl demonstrated tonight should be enough for this board to adjourn and say, tomorrow, we're not putting masks on these kids. Mr. Dolan, it's time to lead. Stop following and be a leader. Okay? I understand your position. I understand how your license, you don't want you need. I've had it. I've had it. Okay? I've had it. Enough is enough. You gotta lead. It's enough already. We're talking about a disease, a virus that has a 99.99x survival rate. If this was a 60% survival rate, let's talk. Let's talk about masks, N95s, vaccines up the kazoo, boost me till I'm blue, whatever. We're talking about 99.9x% survival rate for most of the population. It's incredulous to me that we're having this board meeting about little children who are the most immune to this disease as anybody. We know that. That is a fact. You cannot get away from that. Mr. Dolan, you need just one plaintiff. One plaintiff, and your license will be the least of your problems.
Is Tara the last one, Steph?
No.
Is there anybody else?
One more.
Okay. Tara, are you ready? It's up to you.
You could skip out.
It's up to you.
Yeah, I just kind of need to
That's fine. Okay.
Charlie Kalinowski?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Charles Kalinowski. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Although the Board of Education is not an individual in itself, board trustees are individuals elected by the community. The Board of Education is required to follow laws. We all do, or there are consequences. If the Board of Education did not follow laws, then it would risk the chance the State Department may relieve them of their duties. This in turn would strip those elected by the community of the ability to make decisions that affect the community in which it was elected to serve in the first place. Effectively taking away the ability for the community to elect trustees in the future, this could have consequences for our children and community as a whole. The East Islip Union Free School District's Board of Ed has not allowed this to happen. Board of Education elections are pretty much as local as any election can be. It is my opinion that no Board of Ed should ever make a decision that could possibly sacrifice its ability to continue and represent the community in which it was elected to serve. At last week's Board of Ed meeting, 72% of those who spoke are in support of mask optional in school. If that is reflective of our community in general, then the Board of Ed is supportive of the overwhelming majority of the community. The Constitution is a document that is flexible because of the framers' ability to compromise. We stand united with the West Islip School District and hope other school districts will join us in finding a united path forward. United we stand, divided we fall. God bless our communities, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Charles.
She's ready.
Okay.
She's ready.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, so I will do absolutely whatever it takes at this point to protect these children. Honestly, walking around today, seeing other adults without masks, breathing air, and knowing that my children were sitting in class with masks on, literally made me sick to my stomach. I'm here to band with other parents and hopefully with the board who will go to the end of the earth to fight for these children. During the Hochul's press conference, our children were put in a category of being the most vulnerable with COVID when they pose the least risks, and on top of that, they were categorized with homeless shelters, correctional facilities, subways, train stations. These are our children we are talking about, and this is coming from a governor that the teachers' union is pulling funds to put towards the vote coop to support Hochul. So if the union has 100% of teachers donating that, then that makes the union president look wonderful to nice it, I'm sure. But this woman has not one good intention for our children. I don't understand how any person can support this evil woman. So either teachers agree with her or they're too afraid to pull their funds. It just sickens me to know how many people have their hands in this. We sit here at these meetings and you listen to our comments and say how optimistic things are, but when you took the ESSER funds and all the other emergency money, you also knew what you were signing into, which was following all these mandates until 2023, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, please. So at this point, I mean, nurses can administer vaccines, aides continue to harass our children daily. What world are we living in? I am done. These parents are done. These kids are most certainly done. And now that SAPA has passed all 4 proposals that will have a tremendous effect on our kids that we've been fighting against because Hochul used the DOH as a backdoor without even going through legislature, that's the biggest thing that scares me. And like Troy said, it's time. It is time. We have to get ahead of the mandates before it's too late. Because once it expires on 2/15, they can become a law and she can do whatever she wants, whenever she wants. There's so much corruption going on, it's mind-blowing. Look around, New York is one of the few states that still even have these mandates. Sometimes I wonder, do these people in power have children, grandchildren?
If they don't care about our kids, don't they want a better world for their own families? When are people going to take a stand and put an end to this tyranny? Because people in power are destroying these children. This fight has taken such a toll on all of us. It's taken away time from our families because literally every single day we are fighting. These children should be the first ones protected and yet continue to be pawns in this game. I've been patient for 2 years. I am done. I need my sanity back. I need these kids to have their lives back. So I think that was the end. Hold on. So I just wanted to thank you guys for supporting us, and I really hope that you follow through with the ending the mandate, regardless of what Hochul says. Regardless. We're holding you to the word on that. Because she's evil. She is absolutely evil, and she's doing such harm to these kids, and we have to stand up as Americans to this tyranny. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming down and being respectful. The next Board of Education regular business meeting will be held on Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 8 p.m. Can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor? All right. Everybody have a good night.